What a good-looking bunch of individuals that we have in the audience, not at all on the stage. For the next hour, you're going to be joining us in a celebration of innovation. That's the Hot Six. It is not a pitch competition. There are no winners, save that everyone here is a winner for being here. Spending the time learning about companies who are taking a variety of approaches to redefining the future of gambling, not just in the U.S., but abroad. Hot Six, this is the third time that we've done this, and we're starting to accumulate a very impressive roster of alumni. That chair has been occupied by companies that have raised hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars in total valuation, and recently hundreds of millions of dollars in exits with Hot Six alumni Jack Pocket and Hot Six alumni Beyond Play being sold. And we're only a couple of months into 2024. So we'll start off by briefly introducing our panelists, or having them introduce themselves, and then we're going to move right into the first company, and we move through these things quickly. So if you've got socks, prepare for them to be blown off. Lloyd, why don't we get started with you?
Hey guys, Lloyd Danzig. I'm the managing partner at Sharp Alpha Advisors. We do primarily seed and Series A investing across the sports gaming and entertainment landscape.
Great. Hi, everybody. Meredith McPherron. I'm CEO and managing partner for Drive by DraftKings, sports tech and entertainment fund focused on gaming, fandom, and human performance.
Hi, everyone. I'm Davis Catlin. I'm the managing partner of Discerning Capital, which is sort of an early stage growth, late venture fund focused specifically into regulated gambling markets.
Great. Well, with those introductions out of the way, and I can't believe how many years it took me to realize it was Catlin, not Caitlin. Catlin.
It did take a while.
Caitlin. Nevada, not Nevada, for any of you who might make that mistake. Please join me in welcoming to the stage from jackpot.com. So glad I said it the right way. Akshay, Khanna, co-founder and CEO. Maybe we want to shift over just a little bit. I'm not sure if Next is properly insured for that kind of fall off the stage. So Akshay, as I mentioned, CEO and co-founder of Jackpot.com. That's a leading global lottery courier services platform with a mission to create the most user-friendly digital lottery and online gaming destination. Also of note, Jackpot has invested significantly in responsible gaming safeguards, making it the first digital gaming company to launch its product with ICAP certification from the National Council of Problem Gambling. Davis, why don't we start with you since you're closest? Kick us off.
All right. I thought he was going to give an intro beyond that, but sure, I'll go. And by the way, we found out.
Called for good looks. He didn't.
Yeah. We found out that we are neighbors.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, actually, I think it'd be great to just maybe give us the history of how you guys got to where you are and a little bit about how you think about competing. Obviously, everyone knows the recent exit we just mentioned. Love to hear just kind of that, how you got here and how you think about differentiation.
So I guess probably the most important founding story of any company is the premise, right? And the premise here, the why, was a core belief that people want to shop in a certain way, right? And people want to shop in a certain way almost regardless of what the product is. And the way in which people want to shop in 2024, but also equally true 5 years ago, is cashless, not in person, not having to leave their homes. And what we do is we facilitate the sale of lottery tickets in a way that doesn't require people to leave their homes. And so that was a core premise. And we launched our business here in the US last year. We're now live in 4 states, soon to be 6, soon to hopefully be 45. And the premise has remained the same. It's convenience, it's responsibility, it's safety, it's security. And as you alluded to, and as has been alluded to many times already this morning, there's an industry leader in this space that is, over the course of this transaction with DraftKings, really opened the eyes of a lot of people as to what the value proposition is that lottery couriers like us provide.
For everyone, I believe New York is one of those 4 states.
New York is one of those states. Download the app, buy some lottery tickets. We got $600 million jackpot. Could be one of you.
With that said, I understand you really come from outside the industry. I think you were in ticketing at StubHub and with the NBA, or was it the 76ers
yeah.
before that? most people here who are in the industry are quite aware of the opportunity in online lottery and why it's growing. But outside of the industry, it's slightly less common knowledge. Can you tell us from the outsider's perspective, why'd you choose to work on this as opposed to any other e-commerce problem you could be working on? And anything else from an outsider's perspective on what excites you about the opportunity?
So I tell people the personal version of that story is I feel like almost every founder I meet has a lemonade stand, right? There's like a lemonade stand somewhere in their background, and whether they sold lemonade or they sold something else, that's not me. I was not that person. I never wanted to found a business. It was never a dream of mine. I'm married to a founder. That was her whole life. She knew she wanted to do that. My co-founders, that's all they've done. They started businesses. It's in their DNA. It's who they are. It wasn't me. What really won me over to why this was what I wanted to spend, hopefully, the last chapter of my career on, and why this is what I wanted to gray my beard and gray my hair was just the size, the scale. It gets talked about a lot. The scale of the opportunity is staggering. And as I mentioned on an earlier panel, I will make the assumption that there is another $100+ billion industry with less than 3% digital penetration. I just don't know what it is. Maybe it exists and no one has told me, but that's what lottery is today. And when I saw the scale of the opportunity, in many ways, it reminded me of the place where I'd spent the last 4.5 years before that, which is StubHub. Where when StubHub was founded, people told the two founders that customers will always shop at a box office. They will always go to the box office. I haven't even heard that today. No one even tells me anymore, hey, people are always going to buy lottery tickets in person. I think the internet is undefeated, and the scale of the opportunity is so large, and I'm so lucky to work with an incredible team. And when you combine those three things, it was a no-brainer for someone who never had that lemonade stand in their background.
So Akshay, we're so happy that you made that transition, because charismatic and incredibly capable founder that you are. Take us through, just as you talk about lottery and being top of the funnel in a huge addressable market, how do you, you've been, I think, very creative and strategic in how you have approached acquisition. So maybe take us down a level into strategies for acquisition, for building awareness, and the unit economics that make this such an interesting business.
Yeah, for sure. So I would say step one starts with our product. Having a product that people are excited to look at, interact with, transact in, not just once a month, once a year, but actually once a week or multiple times a day, is critical. And I am very proud of the product that we have built for its ease of use and for its ability to attract customers. From a pure play customer acquisition perspective, lottery is a really interesting world because it really combines the aspects of what is now very quickly becoming traditional digital advertising, which is paid search, paid social, with what used to be the main sources of advertising, local TV, local radio. And it combines those with other ways in which we have chosen to be creative. So we have partnered with sports teams, for example, that brings a certain legitimacy in a market about a product that is new to people and people aren't always sure about how they're going to interact with. We were talking backstage. We experimented with a company that basically puts the little pieces of paper inside of fortune cookies. Because the assumption was, what do people think of after they've eaten their takeaway Chinese food when they are eating those cardboard cookies? They're reading the piece of paper and they're thinking about luck. And in that moment of luck, what do you want to do? You want to try to get lucky. And there's no greater prize when you're trying to get lucky than the $600 million or $2 billion jackpot at your disposal. So I would say it's been a combination, Meredith, of new traditional, as well as some creative experimentation, some of which has worked, some of which hasn't worked. And a lot of credit to our team for not being afraid to take the swings to make sure that, A, we test what works and doesn't, and when something works, we really pour gas on that fire.
Just a quick follow-on, sorry. So we did hear the announcement from Jason Robbins about how efficient the Jackpocket platform is in acquiring customers. How do you explain that?
So I think a few things. So one, what Meredith is alluding to, I'm sure many of you have seen. For those of you who haven't, during the announcement of the DraftKings acquisition of Jackpocket, Jason Robbins mentioned that the acquisition costs for Jackpocket were about 20% that of the blended DraftKings acquisition cost. We see even more efficiency on a CPA basis, and while a lot of the credit goes to the teams behind the creative marketing techniques focused on acquiring and, more importantly, in a way, retaining those customers, some of it also just comes down to the simplicity of the product, right? Sports betting is inherently complicated, maybe not for the people in this room, but for the layperson who's never placed a bet on sports, it's really hard to understand what a parlay is, or what plus 200 means, or what a money line is. Even slots and blackjack and poker, games of skill, games of chance, require you to have some basic knowledge. The beauty of the lottery is more than half of all Americans have bought a lottery ticket in the last 12 months. And even the people that haven't understand how simple that transaction is. And so not needing to educate customers in how or why they should engage in our product means that the only thing we need to do, and I don't mean to reduce the difficulty of what we're doing, but the only thing we need to do is to convince people that it's a better experience to do it on their phones. And on that front, I have no doubt that we will be successful as an industry for sure, and obviously, hopefully us as a company, because as I said earlier, the internet is undefeated.
Yeah. Last question before we wrap it up. Do you exit for a number greater than, equal to, or less than $750 million?
We're very early.
Yeah.
A lot of credit to Jackpocket for really driving and building this industry. I believe, and I believe that our investors believe, some of whom are on the stage, that the opportunity is larger even than has already been exposed. Like, I mentioned this earlier. A lot of people talk about sports betting as being in the early stages. We're still in the early stages. States like California, Texas, Florida have not even come online. And the oft-used analogy is we're, whatever, in the third inning, fourth inning of baseball. Fans haven't even started getting to the stadium on online lottery yet. And
all right.
So I think the number will be bigger.
Akshay hates lemonade, hates fortune cookies, loves lottery. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Akshay, jackpot.com. Don't give your clapping hands too much of a rest, because we're going to ask you to put them together again as we welcome to the stage Jack Barrett, the co-founder of Almost Friday Media. I think next year we really got to let people choose their walk-up music.
I like that intro music.
It's a great idea.
That's
Adam
actually
Krajier
sounds
from
like
EKG is available to select walk-up music if anyone was at the Slot Awards, where we give awards to slot machines, which is something that a lot of people have a hard time wrapping their head around. Jack, as I mentioned, CEO and co-founder of Almost Friday, along with his brothers Max and Sam. That's a lifestyle brand that makes comedy that is relatable for young adults, i.e. people who are not me, all over the country, who might not be sure about a lot of stuff in life, but who love hanging out with their friends. That community revolves around culture, sports, TV and movies, not
Right.
TV
Both of
movies
them.
made for TV, although I guess that'd be in there. Well, music, and most importantly, bringing people together. We brought the four of you together. Lloyd, I know you guys know each other a little bit. Why don't you start us off with the first question for Jack?
I will. I'm sure you get comped to Barstool a lot as a really quick shortcut, like, oh, you guys are like Barstool, and then maybe there's a twist at the end. If people walk away from here with one thing, what do you want them to know about how accurate that characterization is, and maybe parts where the analogy starts to dissipate?
I don't Barstool Sports.
Never heard of them.
Is it a media company? Okay. No, honestly, that question is great, because I am a fan of Barstool Sports, and obviously, like, what they have done as a new media company is exactly how we're putting out content. And they're kind of, I think, blazing the trail for companies like us that realize to create the most meaningful audience possible that you can connect with and monetize and turn into a business, you have to distribute content freely across platforms, across Instagram, across TikTok, across Twitter. You have to create podcasts, you have to create YouTube. You bring the audience because they connect with your culture, and then everything else funnels after that. And, I'm not ashamed to admit, like, when I was in my mid-20s, I read Barstool blogs when a lot of their personalities were blogging. I was a big Pardon My Take listener. RIP to the show that they had for one episode on ESPN. I was a big Spit and Chicklets listener. And guys and the personalities that anchor those platforms are sort of modern digital celebrities that I think a lot of folks don't even realize. Like Big Cat is an incredible blogger, was a blogger, an incredible podcaster. PFT commenter the same way. Paul Bissonette does Spit and Chicklets the same way. And Dave Portnoy controls these personalities in a way that's like the greatest reality show I've ever seen on TV. We're different in that people come for the same reasons. Our personalities are kind of electric and they draw to a culture that Almost Friday Media has established, but it's not the reality show version. We're a scripted comedy company. We make like thoughtful, elevated, funny, considered, everyone's invited to the party content, but it's sort of done like we write scripts. We put out sketches. We make different content that is, I think, scratching the itch in a different way than Barstool's bringing it in. So it's not even a competition thing. Like we're sharing a lot of the same audience, but it's drawing them in a different way that is a lot of comedy focus. And even if, some people in the audience aren't familiar with who we are, and you might have a connect, maybe you have a son who's in their 20s or something, text them and ask them if they've seen Almost Friday or Friday Beers or jokes across any social platforms. I can almost guarantee you they will say, yeah, I've seen a lot of that stuff, or I'm a fan of a lot of that stuff. And that's a huge, huge divider of what makes us different than Barstool. And also just, it's not even better or worse. It's just a product that's different. And there's a lot of room to share. And I think there's a lot of room to keep doing what we're doing in a slightly different, but just like comedically styled way.
So I'm just going to jump in because I have a 24-year-old, and in coming here, it was as if I was meeting with a rock star, and he just like couldn't believe it. So I just stepping back, I feel like I'm like about to start a podcast on the question like, how did you build this? Mm-hmm. But I think it would be really amazing just to kind of share a little bit about your background as a comedy writer and how you were able to so quickly resonate with, now you said 20 million followers across all of your more than a dozen properties. Like, take us on that quick journey.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. And it honestly starts like, there's a lot of different companies speaking here. I mean, we're a little bit different because we engage audience through a feeling. And like what we set out to do is create a company, I shouldn't say that. We set out to tell jokes that entertain people and made them feel good about growing up. My brother Max and I were and are comedy writers that were like trying to figure out a way to write about our experiences growing up as 25-year-olds that resonated to people. And we wrote a script every month. We're like, we're gonna write a pilot script every month. People didn't really like buy into the comedy we were making because they're like, what have you done that is successful? Nothing in comedy, right? And then we made this Instagram account. Max started posting these videos on Friday Beers that were taking all the jokes that we had in scripts and putting them in this format that combined movies that people have seen, TV shows that people have seen, sports moments that people have seen, music that people have listened to, and jokes that were our jokes. And that account started growing faster than I've ever seen anything. And I remember sitting on a train once. I was on I'm from Greenwich, Connecticut originally. I was going on the train home. I was looking at my phone, and the account followers was growing by like hundreds of people every couple minutes. And I said to my friend Olson, I was like, dude, this is finally hitting in a way that I've never anticipated it hitting so big. It's working, and people are picking up on this sense of humor. And this girl sitting 2 rows away from me popped her head out, and she says, like, are you guys talking about Friday Beers? Because my boyfriend deleted Instagram, but just re-downloaded it to share Friday Beers posts with his friends. And that's when I knew that we had tapped into this culture about community, socializing, positivity, and inviting everybody to the party. And if we could keep doing that, there was a huge platform there that allowed us to grow. And we have become a company since then. In 2020, we just made Instagram posts and sold some t-shirts and hats online that has brought in sketch comics, has brought in producers, that have brought in graphic designers that make different types of content, all based on that meme content we first made, but doing it across sketches, podcasts, long form, hosting parties and events around the country, selling apparel, and then also selling direct-to-consumer products in terms of, like, we have a bar in Nashville called Almost Friday Sporting Club. We have a beer, the best tasting light beer in the entire world, by the way, called Friday Beers, that we'll be launching in New York City very soon, that just make people feel good about our brand. And because of that, it gives them access to this really amazing community of people that we've built behind it. And I'm really proud that the company has gotten to that point.
That's fantastic that you're able to take like your life experience and turn that into a business. I think that's what we all aspire to do.
It was literally like, wait, we've been making these same jokes forever, and so has every group of kids around the country that's finding this stuff for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up always wanting to invest in casinos, so it's worked out perfectly.
There you go. Yeah.
But my question to you is, like, you've built this community. I also deleted Instagram, so maybe we got to get back on just so I can see more of your content. But you've built this community, you've built a business. You kind of talked about you went from meme content to now you're selling multiple business lines. Where do you want this to go? And I don't mean like, oh, we're going to sell in 12 months. I mean, like, what do you want this to look like? Is this something that could be inside of a bigger media business, or do you always need to be independent? Like, what's your kind of vision for what we're 5 years from now, we're high-fiving about success. What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know about the consolidation inside of a bigger media business, but I do see the path that places like Barstool Sports have very successfully carved out for themselves. And they're like, the funding really helped them evolve to a next stage. And they had they have content projects that they know work, but they're Barstool Sports. They're a lifestyle brand that makes people happy. We are Almost Friday Media. We are a lifestyle brand that makes people happy through scripted comedy. Building on that basis, the ways I just outlined what our company does is branded content, podcasts, YouTube content, apparel, parties, direct to consumer. Those 6 things. Putting money into those things to make more of that good content. To hire, we're a small company now. I think we're like 30 people, but maybe, once we can bring in a little bit more resources, we will have producers working on every different project when we're really spread thin right now. We'll be able to crank out way more of the stuff that resonates to a 24-year-old living with 3 roommates in Murray Hill on a regular basis. And that, I think, is the destination for us, is like an all points lifestyle and comedy brand that is bringing people happiness and joy and laughter and connection with their friends, which is the best thing I could ever imagine in the world, every single week. And I think that's the spot that we're really gunning for.
I got the last question for Jack. How many times a week do people tell you that you bear a strong resemblance to Tom Selleck? How often do you get that? I think it's primarily the eyebrows.
I actually gave him David Beckham the other day.
Those are Beckham would kill for those eyebrows. Those are Selleck eyebrows.
I am flattered to get that comparison with a Beckham. Sometimes I get Henrik Lundqvist comparisons too. I think I just have a really weird face that sometimes makes people think of other folks, so I'll take it. I'm on it.
Let's give a round of applause to the guy with the weird face. Jack Barrett from Almost Friday Media. All right. Next, we're going to welcome up to the stage someone. We'll figure out what he thinks about his own face. You can make your judgments as well. That's Nick Bonaddio from BigBrain, founder and CEO. I like that a lot. That was the highlight of my day.
Alan Alda?
Yeah.
That's great.
Little Woody Harrelson sometimes.
I can see strong Alda vibes. From the guy who is the founder and CEO of BigBrain. That's a real money gaming platform that turns games that everyone loves, like trivia, bubble shooters, and solitaire, into live multiplayer real money tournaments. Since launching, over $2.4 million in prizes on the platform. And before BigBrain, you came from inside of our industry as opposed to our first 2 founders. Nick used to be the CPO at FanDuel, and he led the company's charge into the sports betting space. Meredith, why don't you give us the first question for Nick?
Great.
Hi, Meredith. How are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm walking on sunshine.
Nice. Okay, so we've all seen the rise of real money skill gaming, and we have several investments in that space as well. So my first question for you is just as you think about the competition in the space and how do you kind of get to a point of difference that allows you to have advantage in acquisition and in retention. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, well, I mean, retention already is going to be really high. I mean, as you probably see in the skill space.
Yep.
The main differentiation that we try to carve out is whereas a lot of the existing operators right now kind of target more arcade games, like your bubble shooters. We have a bubble shooter. We try to think of our main competitor more as a New York Times, someone who plays a crossword, someone who likes the brain games, someone who watches Jeopardy. That happens to be very congruent with someone who has a higher household income, higher level of affinity. So whereas other people may be zigging towards, again, the more arcade-style games, we try to be, one, more comprehensive at having all the games, but more of a tilt towards what I call the brain games.
Gotcha.
Could you, Chris mentioned you were at FanDuel briefly. You have a fascinating background.
I don't know about
involving-
briefly. I was there for like 5 years.
Chris briefly described your stint at FanDuel.
Commas matter. Where's the comma?
Indeed. You have a fascinating background involving being on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire at some point. Could you elucidate that for everyone?
So in 2010, I was on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, the TV game show, with Regis. And like Regis is like 5'2", and I'm 6'6". So like if you see the on YouTube, it's actually a really weird like camera angle. Won 100,000, quit my job the very next day. I'm a software engineer by background, so I was coding at some Facebook app company. Quit my job the next day, started a company called Numberfire. Numberfire was and is a sports analytics platform. We were doing Moneyball stuff like way before people knew what that was. Grew it to about 5 million in revenue, probably 6-7 million monthly uniques. We kind of hit the ceiling of what it could be. This was before DFS was really big. This is before sports betting. Sold it to FanDuel, mostly on the idea that RIP could supercharge DFS pricing, a whole bunch of stuff for them, which has turned out to be true. And yeah, I was at FanDuel for 5 years, became CPO. During my time as CPO, Passbook gets repealed, and so lots of fun stuff was happening. That was more fun than getting sued. But yeah, and it was quite an interesting ride. It turns out I'm an early stage guy. I like building. I don't like sitting around boardrooms. I like KKR's people. They're nice, but like I don't want to be in a boardroom with them, all day. So I wanted to go build, and that's why I started BigBrain.
So I guess my question, there's a lot of entrepreneurs in the room as I look around. You've made the plunge from small company to big company and back. What's probably, two questions. One, what's the most useful piece of advice you give someone else going through a similar transition, starting a business? And what's kind of the thing that surprised you most about building a game that's in this sort of more regulated space versus the first one you built was analytics?
Yeah, the one piece of advice I'd give any entrepreneur is, the macroeconomic environment around VC funding has changed. And like, whereas it used to be about top line numbers like MAUs, DAUs, things like that, now it's not. And so get to monetization earlier, rid yourself of the idea that you need to grow quickly and then blitz scale it and then just rely on VC funding forever. That is something I wish I had done differently, as we've talked about. And then what was your second question? I wasn't listening as I was thinking about what I was getting.
Well, just what's the most like surprising thing about doing it?
The most surprising thing about doing it is certainly like relative to this audience, there are investors who get gaming and there's investors that don't get gaming, and the investors that don't get gaming really don't get it. And so like, you or Lloyd will ask me really thoughtful questions and like we'll get the market and understand where it's going. If I talk to a generalized VC, like I don't want to be pejorative.
We're not going to name them.
A more general VC, you'll get some questions that like indicate that they don't really get it. They don't understand the regulatory environment. They don't understand like what Passbook repeal means. And so to anyone who's out raising money, I wouldn't even talk to those firms. Like it's unless you have more patience than me.
Yeah.
Just one more quick one. It's amazing we haven't brought up AI in the first two conversations. It seems to come up with everyone, but I did want to throw that out to you, just given that you got your start in trivia and how disruptive and advantageous AI can be in the creation of these games.
Yeah, I mean, AI is super powerful in terms of sourcing the questions we would use for trivia. Like, we can train a model that go digest a Wikipedia article or something and say, hey, give me 10 trivia questions about the state of Pennsylvania. It could do that really quickly. And so from a sourcing perspective on the trivia side, it's actually really helpful. Where it is problematic on the other side is now you're dealing with cheating, you're dealing with like fraud things like that. So what I have to do as an operator is figure out a way to make sure my questions are as non-Googleable as possible. From a games mechanics perspective, it's not about just getting the correct answer, it's about getting the correct answer quickly. And so there's a timing involved with it. At the end of the day, you can do all the things you can do around anti-fraud. You're never going to catch everything. That's why I think over time with BigBrain, we started with just trivia as the first thing we did, kind of as the idea of what if we merged HQ Trivia with FanDuel as that was sort of the original idea. And then we realized that, when someone's done playing trivia, maybe they want to go play Bubble Shooter, maybe they want to go play, so let's build a platform. And I think as you move away from your fundamentally being tied to one game, then the incremental impacts of AI on one singular game gets minimized.
It seems like FanDuel in particular has been the leader in the US in embracing this style of gaming through their FanDuel Face-Off platform, which is a ton of fun. I play a lot of Wheel of Fortune on that one and enjoy it. If you could just speak directly to the executives of everyone except for FanDuel, what would you tell them about why they should be jumping on this
I will be very
right
frank. If you work in sports and you're not FanDuel or DraftKings, you probably have the exact same product as everybody else. You're competing for the exact same users. You're getting your ass kicked on acquisition, and your audience is 99% men, and it's seasonal. That's not a recipe for success. You have to go and explore real money gaming alternatives. Skill in particular is dramatically non-seasonal. It's 24/7, 365. It's neither male nor female. Our audience is 59% women. That's a very, very different audience. And so from an acquisition perspective, it becomes a very, very different aperture for your company. Ideally, the biggest company in the space, and if I'm going to be honest, it's going to be FanDuel or DraftKings, is going to be a real money gaming company that has a solution for every single one of those sectors. It's going to have lottery, it's going to have DFS, it's going to have sports betting, it's going to have skill, it's going to have sweepstakes, and it's going to run horizontally on the same wallet and the same identity. For whatever reason, people haven't discovered just how powerful skill is. Papaya, Avia, these are companies that are doing hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue, and I bet no more than 20 or 30 people in this room have heard of them. And it's strange, but that's okay. I'll just sell to them in a couple of years for 10 times what they could buy me for now. So that's fine.
Love it. Love it.
Do you think that creates an just thinking about, let's pick on FanDuel for a second. If they've acquired this big user base. And maybe, I guess it probably makes sense to pick on DraftKings. Sorry. But you've acquired that user base. It's men heavy. It's sports heavy. They've trained that customer base. How do you sell them? You're in the room with Jason and you say, this is why you need us and this is how you convert. Because is it actually better?
7 p.m. to midnight. What are you doing for the other 19 hours?
Well, it's interesting. Shouldn't you be an independent app? Isn't there an opportunity for you to be that?
Well, so the problem with the independent app is that you're going to have a difficult time doing the shared wallet and identity in a different app. And so what you should ideally do is be contextual. And so let's say that you've got a Christmas NBA game. Well, then run NBA trivia during halftime of that game. The second that the first slate ends in DFS, be hey, you just won $10. There's someone waiting right here to play sports trivia or go play Bubble Shooter. You want to keep people in the ecosystem, you want to keep them doing things. And I don't mean from a problematic gaming perspective. I mean from a perspective of let's make sure someone always has something to do. Fundamentally, sports is about football, it's about March Madness, and it's about 5 hours out of the day. You have to give people something else to do during the other times.
Lloyd, you got a last one to take us home here?
I believe your wife recently had a baby?
No, I'm having a daughter in 3 weeks.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So if anyone has any advice for how to be a first-time father while simultaneously being a startup founder, I would love to hear it.
All right, Nick needs help raising his children. Help him out if you can. Big round of applause. Nick Bonaddio of BigBrain. Past the halfway point. How's everyone feeling? Feeling pretty good? Wow, that was energizing. Okay. Hopefully we can generate a modicum of additional energy for our next founder, Melanie Mercier, founder and CEO of Goss. Is that royalty-free Bush? Is that what we're hearing there? That really sounds like royalty-free Machine Head.
I can see that.
It's what I think was just played. So Goss is a female-focused prediction platform reshaping entertainment in the betting industry, departing from traditional sports betting, sort of in the vein of what Nick was just talking about. Goss invites users to test their skills by predicting outcomes related to their favorite TV shows, celebrities, and trending events. I'm going to predict that Davis is asking the first question.
Perfect. Well, you know that I love your business. I think it's really interesting what you're doing. You're creating new ways to engage people in like a betting concept. So can you maybe give us some background on how that works, reality TV? How is it different than sports, and just help the audience kind of get up to speed on what you've innovated?
Yeah, so I guess to begin, the way that I kind of elevator pitch it is sports betting, but for pulp culture. So to follow up some examples, I don't know how many of you are watching Love is Blind. Today, new episodes dropped. Whoop, whoop. But one question would be, how many people are saying yes at the altar? We'll have predictions on The Bachelor. Who's going to get that, first impression rose? But we'll step outside of that bubble and do things like how many games will Taylor Swift be at for the Chiefs? So that's kind of how we've, I guess, navigated that and are doing things a little bit differently.
And then just real quick, how do you incentivize the players? How important is social? If I remember correctly, that's a big part of like, once I get in, I want to send it to Meredith because, hey, I'm starting a pool. So you talk about the social and then sort of the prizes at the end.
So currently the way Goss works is we have our own digital currency, not crypto. So we have coins and diamonds. You wager coins to win diamonds to then kind of cash out rewards, which includes everything from like a physical lip gloss, but also gift cards. Goss is going through, I guess, a bit of a relaunch where we will be doing, I'm not here to promote Fliff, but, go Fliff. They have a really good model, and we realized we have the same currency setup where there's kind of like a soft play and a hard play. So now we want to go to diamond on diamond betting, where users will be able to still redeem prizes, but be able to kind of spend a little bit more money in the game doing so, but then also redeem dollars and be able to kind of cash out, actual dollars in the end.
Interesting just to take us through your journey on monetization, because I know early on when we had the...
Yeah, you've been with us since the beginning, not officially, but, maybe after this year.
Yes, maybe so, absolutely. I know you started with a lot of free engagement, which is really helpful just to get people in. And now you have a number of different ways to monetize, including added a layer of sweepstakes. So can you just take us a little bit more through the model, monetization and sweepstakes, how that overlay works and how it's going?
Yeah, so Goss has a little bit of a layer cake approach when it comes to monetization. The most fruitful one that we're working on now is the diamond on diamond betting. So I'm sure lots of people know how difficult it is to set up a bank for skill-based and sweepstakes gaming. So if anybody wants to shoot a bank my way, that would be helpful. But once that's kind of, I guess, the main vertical, which still follows under in-app purchases, that's how you kind of get the diamonds. Then we have partnerships. So we work with a lot of brands that gift us products, but it will be monetizing that arm as well. I guess, those are the two main ones. Yeah.
And just a quick follow-on. Do you imagine that you will be maintaining a sweepstakes model, or would it make sense to move into regulated kind of betting?
We want to stay with kind of, the sweepstakes skill-based model. It feels like it's much easier to enter, and we don't want to have to deal with kind of so much red tape when it comes to state by state.
Yeah.
So Goss currently, it's 46% US, 46% UK, 8% Canada. So I think this makes sense. Even like women bet differently as well. Some women, when you ask them like what they think on betting, they kind of say like, "Oh no, I would never do that." But then when we ask them, "What's your favorite part about Goss?" They're like, "Oh, I love like wagering and seeing if I'm right." And I'm like, "Well, that is betting." so yeah.
I imagine this answer might be changing as you guys are refocusing the monetization strategy, but what's your understanding of the role that Goss plays in the lives of your users? Is this time and potentially money being reallocated from something else that they're spending it on? Is it replacing just kind of like doom scrolling on Instagram? Where is the time and energy that your users are spending on your platform coming from or being reallocated from in their current lives, if you have that insight?
I guess I'm going to answer your question first, and then I'm going to give you, I guess, the reason why we're making Goss. I would say we took a lot of inspiration from, like your Instagrams. We wanted something that felt familiar to our user base. We took a lot of inspiration from TikTok as well. So naturally, I guess, like these are comparisons, but we have a presence on both of those platforms as well. I wouldn't say that there's a direct competitor where we're, fighting for, the same minutes of time. But I guess what made me want to create Goss, the founding story, one of my friends, I'm based in London, he placed a bet on Tottenham versus Chelsea. And this bet was a really big bet. They haven't won in this stadium for about 35 years. So off the back of this bet, they ended up winning. And he had this physical bet slip, and he wouldn't stop bragging about this win. And he's like flashing this ticket in my face. And I'm like, okay, like I get it. And there was this moment where I was like, this feels really unfair. Like, how come men have all of these platforms to wager on their interests? And I was like, I'm Canadian, I like hockey, girls can like sports too, right? But I was like, traditionally, 90% of men engage with sports. There is I think it was NBC, did an article that showed that 94% of women engage with reality TV. So to get that additional thrill of participation is what was missing for women. And it was, I guess, yeah, that's kind of what fueled my fire. And then when we look at how women are targeted in this industry, no offense to the slots and casinos and lottery people here, but that's kind of what's pushed towards us. Nothing that involves any brain power or any skill or us being able to, say, hey, I think I'm right. So, yeah, that's a long-winded way of me not answering your question, but thought it was important to say nonetheless.
Did your friend end up losing that bet slip before they cashed?
I was waiting for it to be like, I could wrap it in tore in half.
That was the arc to the story, that they lost the ticket before they cashed it.
No, they didn't, but
That's a shame.
it was one of those nights that really, it started from a shotgun conversation, and if not me, who, and if not now, when.
Love it.
Right?
We were chatting before about just this searching for that insight, hoping you can share around, is the issue potentially of women not actually betting, sports betting, more one of the form factor, if you will. It's not an environment, it's not a UI that is conducive, or is it more the topic? They'd rather be betting on reality TV and entertainment, or both?
I would say both. When creating this business, there's tons of research that, went into, you guys have all seen my decks. So part of it, I think, certainly is the format. There's a bigger barrier to entry when you're going on a traditional sports betting platform. There's a lot of KYC. And then once you're finally in, you're hit with fractional decimal odds. And I don't even think it's for women. It's just, it feels overwhelming if you've never played in this pool before. So for Goss, it's essentially answering more multiple choice question. And yeah, there's odds baked in there, but it's based on the rewards that, the stakes that you make and the rewards that are paid out. Content, yes, you can, go to, sorry, these are kind of UK references, but your William Hills or your Bet365s, and you can, bet who's going to win The Bachelor day one. But the way that I describe it, it's kind of like going to Home Depot and realizing that they sell makeup in the back corner. It's kind of hidden within a tab, and it doesn't feel like women are getting the same service that men are getting. So Goss is not completely for female. You know, it's like 86% female. But we wanted something that felt different, felt, you know, approachable, and we also think it's just a huge market that is completely untapped, and we want to be the ones that tap it.
Can I squeeze one in?
You can.
How do you set lines for bachelorettes coming out? How do you set the lines for the questions, or is it all just even money and it's more about?
So there's two ways we do it. They all work. The odds are all dynamic. So more people that choose Susie, that price is going to increase. But if we know that Susie's going to be a front runner, we can stagger it as a starting point as well.
So you have a risk management team watching lots of Bachelorette? You.
Yeah.
I love it.
All right, that makeup section of Home Depot sounds like a very specific kind of hell.
Yeah.
Join me in thanking for her time, Melanie Mercier of Goss.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mel.
All right, 4 down and our 5th non-contestant. Please join me in welcoming to the stage co-founder and president of Hater Fantasy Sports, David Vadurro. There's some words in this description that are all capitalized, so I'm going to try and give them proper emphasis. Hater is here for all fantasy sports gamers to select those whom they believe are about to have terrible games. Low score wins, capitalized, is the motto here at Hater Fantasy Sports, so cheer loudly for the fumbles, interceptions, doinks, the wide rights, bricks, airballs, strikeouts, and ejections, all because low score wins. I thought it maybe get a little crowd participation there at Hater Fantasy Sports. Meredith, you want to kick us off with the first question for David?
Hi, David.
Hi. Just so you notice, look how many people laugh or get engaged by the idea here.
Well, okay, let's start there. I was really curious how you landed on this idea, just kind of what you saw, the problem you were trying to solve, and why this is, going to be huge.
So, been playing fantasy sports our whole lives, and a friend of mine, actually one of the other co-founders, simply owned a domain name, Hater Fantasy Sports, and I immediately looked at him like, that's an awesome name. I was like, what is that? He's like, it's nothing. I just own a name, and I said to him, Eric, what if low score wins? He's like, no, it's already invented, this and that, and we quickly do our research, look into it. It's not out there. We reached out to his patent attorney, and lo and behold, we actually got a utility patent on this. So we owned the low score wins concept in all of fantasy sports. And the reason I wanted to start doing this is, as much as I love DraftKings and FanDuel, and I play them all the time, it's the same game as it was, guys, since 1995, where we get to school when you're in high school and you're pulling out the newspaper on a Monday trying to figure out who's in first place and who's playing tonight, and nothing has changed. But the game is still, you go on there every single Sunday, 900,000 people playing the same game, trying to win $1 million. So we figured, here's a way to interrupt the norm. And give the players something a little bit different, something a little bit more fun, and it engages them to actually watch a sports game in a totally different way. When you're looking for somebody to throw an interception rather than a touchdown, you're like, God, don't give it to my running back on the 1 yard line. I don't let him score here. It's you start watching the game in a whole different way, and it's a fun, engaging way to just simply hate on players all day long and hopefully win some cash from it.
Looking out at some of the younger faces here, you might have aged yourself by mentioning pulling out a newspaper during high school for what it's worth. That aside, one of the things that strikes me is that, look, as a Jets fan, I would bet on the Jets to record any number of turnovers every single week, and I do appreciate that. But I wonder if perhaps you ever see challenges where, I guess, the worst performing players are probably the least famous in some sense. The best performing players tend to be the most famous. Do you struggle at all with the recognition of the athletes that one would want to put into a low score wins lineup? is it at all at odds with the preference that people have for following their favorite players, or is that not intention?
No, good question. And we saw this from the very beginning. So what we decided to do to make sure that the game is engaging and that people are going to play this is take out the second and third string running backs. Get rid of the fourth string wide receivers. Guys on the basketball bench that barely get into the game, you don't even make this roster. And in FanDuel and DraftKings, everybody has to hit this, stay below the salary cap is what we've all been trained to do. But in our game, you've got to get to a salary base. You can go above it as high as you want, but if you don't get to this base number, you will never qualify. So you may want to take, a second or third, guys who kind of just suck. But the game's going to start forcing you to start picking very good, excellent, all-star caliber players. And that's where the fun of it gets is like, okay, who's going up against a dime defense today that struggles on Monday Night Football? And like I live in the Philadelphia area, and I knew that whenever the Giants came to town, since Eli was in town, Eli's going to be terrible. It's just the way that it is, and it's fun to recognize those aspects of the game. So the game's actually it's extremely challenging. You think you're good at it until you try it. It's a tough game.
And to confirm, low score wins means both that you reward turnovers and penalize yardage, touchdowns, and things like that, or is it only rewarding the negative stat categories?
So for familiarity purposes, the scoring is exactly the same that we've been playing our whole lives with.
Okay.
So touchdown still 6 or whatever it is, 10 yards is 1 point, so on. So the familiarity with the users that are already out there, they already understand the scoring. Nothing's changed.
What's your number one way that you get customers? Like what, it's interesting. I think everyone chuckles. You play this, say the guy sucks, and you're like, this sounds hilarious. I managed to always lose my fantasy sports thing. So how do you find the people and quickly tell them what it is, get them to sign up? Like what's your been the most successful way you've been able to identify and train players?
So we are pre-launch. We are launching this baseball season. So my question is, I don't know. Besides, we do have people signed up, such as, you'll appreciate this, Frank the Tank at Barstool Sports, who is one of the biggest haters but greatest personalities. Everybody loves him because he just hates on everybody. And we reached out to Frank the Tank, and he's like, dude, I'm in. He's like, this is hilarious. This is great. I can sell this for you all day long. And he's going to be one of the guys that's going to be pushing the product for us.
Got it. So social media driven to start, and then you'll figure out the rest from
excuse me, let me back up a second. We also do have in place a few business relationships, to be able to, I guess you wouldn't call it white labeling, and putting this game onto their platform as well. So even when we do launch, we should be in front of 25, 30,000 people to just get it on out there.
You should B2B license it to DraftKings.
Do you have a content strategy in mind? It seems like kind of the hater humor is...
You can play off it all day. All day long you can play off it. So the content, it's almost like it feeds itself. And if you're in the room and you're listening to this, and you probably already thought of a few things already to make this game, like how funny it could be. And when I pitched this to at FSGA a couple of years ago, we had was it Antonio Brown leaving the game, giving the peace sign up. I'm like, this is the guy you want to draft, and these are the guys you're looking for in basketball. You Draymond Green, because why he gets thrown out of every other game. Like these are the guys that you want. But content wise is how to get there on it. Honestly, out of my league, it's not my forte, but my other guys on the team that it'll be well covered.
Yeah.
Understanding you haven't launched yet, what do you imagine being the role that this platform plays in the lives of your users? Is this for DraftKings users who want something to switch it up every once in a while? Is it for people who exclusively want to play low score wins and are going to delete DraftKings and FanDuel once they get to really enjoy your app? What do you think the role is in your core users' broader sports fandom portfolio?
The ton of feedback that we've gotten back from our surveys are they're not going to stop playing DraftKings and FanDuel, right? But they're going to look to us to hedge their bet. Like, yeah, we think we're good over here, but just in case these guys really suck today, I'm going to throw a hater lineup in, and we're going to cash in on that end over there. So,
Davis, it sounds like you would have been better off.
I know.
Entering low score wins competition.
I think I won in 2016 once.
With the same lineup, though.
Yeah, I got it. You guys are building it out. you've gotten to the point now where you're getting ready to launch, you're starting to sign commercial agreements. Like, what's the number one thing that as you're thinking about the risk to your business? What is it that you're kind of identified and are planning for?
Are you asking what's the biggest risk we're seeing at this point?
Just like what are you focused on? Like, what's the thing you're like, gotta get to the other side of?
Honestly, we've built this game ourselves. We self-funded this. We're both entrepreneurs. I own a real estate appraisal company. I've been an appraiser for the past 20 years. This is a savings that is something that we firmly believed in. It's like this is the entrepreneurial American dream, right? Here's us taking a shot on this. So. I don't. At this point, I don't have a lot of fears or anything. Each obstacle that we saw, we've met, straight on. We've become legal in 27 states. Our compliance is fully in place. And everything that our banking's in place with the player pool funds. Everything's sitting there. So, next biggest challenge is honestly this conversation. See where it goes from there.
All right, last question. Based on the accent, I'm guessing I'm going to say like stack ranking South Philly, maybe Northeast Philly.
Good, yeah. South Jersey, yeah.
South Jersey. All right, so I still got, if anyone else wants me to guess their accent, come up after the panel. Until then, join me in thanking for his time, David Vadurro from Hater Fantasy.
Good luck.
All right. Next up, the doctor is in. Seth Doctor, co-founder and CEO of WagerWire, closing us out.
First in your heart, though.
WagerWire, that's a multifaceted, big word, solutions provider to sportsbooks and fantasy operators, offering a first-of-its-kind marketplace for active sports bets and fantasy entries, plus affiliate services, educational tools, and daily content through the Wire Media Network. Lloyd, why don't you kick us off for the first question here for Zeth?
Sure, this is one of the most common questions you get from at least people who somewhat understand the business. Tell us about secondary markets. Tell us how those compete with cash out.
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks for the question. First, just want to say shout out to Next, Anusha, Pierre, Rory, put on a great show here. So thanks for that, and great to be on the stage sharing this with you guys. So yeah, I think it's a great question. So WagerWire, for everyone, is really the ability to sell your bet in an aftermarket or a fantasy entry, a contest, a bracket. Think March Madness, things like that. And the sportsbooks have rolled out this feature called Cash Out, where they'll basically offer you a buyback on your bet. And look, we think that's in the right direction. It kind of helps scratch the itch, but from the user's perspective, the challenge is you can't always count on it, right? There's pricing issues, there's coverage issues. So if you're getting an offer at 60 cents on the dollar for your bet, or you don't even know if it's necessarily going to be there at halftime when you want to, it's not really impacting player behavior. You're not placing the bet, planning to cash it out later, and that's what we can change with WagerWire, is that you can actually impact the player behavior where you're now placing your action, intending to sell it later. You bake it into your strategies because you can get a fair market-based price for it. And then from the operator side, that actually feeds right into why it's good for the operators as well, because we go B2B with our technology. We partner with sportsbooks. We can embed this right inside their apps. They can also have their bets trading on our app. And when you get this kind of emboldened player who's now taking bigger swings, maybe they're putting 50 on that parlay instead of 20, or they're placing futures bets on 20 teams at the start of March Madness and selling them throughout the rounds, you're just getting more volume. You're growing the overall pie. You have kind of a confident player that now has this downside protection and has outs that they're going to take more action. And so that's where we kind of see this as the evolution of cash out. We're not saying stop doing cash out. Just now you can choose either take the cash out price or list it on the market.
Before we get to the next question, I pulled a massive Ron Burgundy there. I just read the thing that was on my piece of paper for some reason. Of course, your name is not Zeth. That's not
I don't know how Zeth ended up on the website for a minute. But
it's on a piece of paper. I read it. Of course, this is Zach, my friend who I know in real life. So apologies to you and everyone for me just blindly.
I was over here being like, I can't believe we've been calling him Zach this whole time.
Doc.
Don't worry about it, Mr. Catlin. It's not a big deal. Okay, back to the interrogation.
All right.
So Zach,
Yeah.
just backing up a little bit around sort of how you got to this and also kind of what the scaled vision of it is. I know when we chatted, there was, a big thesis around efficiency and efficient markets and how this would serve that. But I'm just curious, in your own words, if you could kind of share what got you to this great idea, and how you think, perhaps as a second to that, like, what are the bigger challenges with operators and such that are in your way to get to that perfect vision?
Yeah, absolutely. So, had the idea on the couch, like I think most good sports betting ideas happen, where I had placed a bet before the game. My co-founder, who was my roommate at the time, Travis, got home late from work, and he didn't want to take the live line. It was a Thursday night football game. He just wanted to ride the same bet as me. And so it was actually this kind of like social friend use case that started it. He Venmoed me $50. We figured out the split of the ticket. But then we had that light bulb moment where, like, you should be able to buy into your friend's bet. Or, if you game that out, it doesn't have to be your friend. It could be, whoever across the country, or even, some sort of trading firm that's like, buying and selling these bets. So we started working on it from there. And then we took the approach to go B2B with it because we wanted to kind of improve the user experience from within, get to more people that way, right? If you partner with a large operator that already has millions of users, you get this out to the audience faster. You don't need to compete with DraftKings. We try to partner with them, So that's where the idea came about. And then we do have this vision. I think what you're kind of alluding to is that we do have a WagerWire app that is the aggregated marketplace of bets and fantasy entries. And we have this vision that in the long run, volume does come back to the WagerWire app, that you could be kind of like you have all your bets right there. The best prices will always be available. It's kind of like a Priceline kind of situation where you can shop across all of our partners. But the straightest path to mass distribution is through the embedded version that goes right inside the sportsbook apps. And so we're really focused on that right now. We also use our app as a showcase. We have a great in-house engineering team and data science team, and we can build some really cool tech. And so we like to show that off and show it to the partners, and then it's it's modular. So if you like this feature, you want to bring pricing in, you want to have charts, you want to have social features, like the operator partner can pick and choose what they like, and they can bring it into their app too. So it kind of has like a dual purpose of just showcasing the technology and the user experience, and then in the long run, we see it coming around to us.
So beginning with more white label strategy within individual books.
Yeah, and that's what we're live with right now. We're live on the Stations Casino STN Play app for free-to-play with our partnership with Sparkit, who I think was in the audience. And then we're live on Real-Time Fantasy Sports, embedded marketplace on their site. We're now working on bringing those pick'ems into our app. That's the next step, and kind of show the full cycle. But yeah, right now, like especially with larger operators, they want this in their app as a feature they can roll out to their users.
And what's the number one piece of pushback you get? You go to the bigger players and you say, hey, we want to do this. It's better for you, or better for the customers. Is it, we've already got cash out and we make a ton of money on that? Because I've done cash out before and it feels like it's like, check cashing or something. It's like they take all your money. So is it they're protecting that profit stream, or is it more, this is our customer, who are you? Like when you're running into the walls, what are you hearing?
Honestly, the biggest challenge is technical roadmap time. The operators see the promise of this concept. Sometimes you hear, will this cannibalize cash out? We think that we're going to get more people cashing out than ever before because of that psychology flip that I'm talking about, where now you get people just getting used to this behavior more of selling. But then it comes down to, these sports books, a lot of them are on third-party tech platforms. Their roadmaps are a mile long. They want to innovate, but they're just like hamstrung by this. So we get into this spot where you can end up in just in roadmap purgatory. But that's actually why we started going to fantasy operators. Honestly, like they're very product focused. They control their own tech. They're very innovative. They take the user experience seriously. So we've been super happy with the fantasy space and just the attitude of the operators there. And for the near term, we're pretty focused on fantasy actually. Yeah.
And just to ask, for fantasy, what am I selling? I've got an entry into a $1 million prize pool in DraftKings, and then I go over there and who sets the price? How do they know? I feel like there's be a lot of iterations there.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different kind of subcategories of fantasy. So right now we're live with pick'em trading.
Got it.
So you hit a leg or two of your pick'em, you want to sell out of it, or you want to sell half of it, bank a profit, let the rest ride. That's what we initially did with real-time fantasy sports. Now we're working on teams and DFS entries where, yeah, if even a season-long team, a dynasty league, we're going to have off-season marketplace trading in the off-season for dynasty leagues. So I really think like the sky's the limit on the different use cases for this. And yeah, the pricing gets a little tricky. Fantasy actually was one of the harder problems for us to solve, and we solved it first because it's in-game, right? When you have player props going on real time, all at the same time. Steph Curry's line before the game was 5 threes. He's got 3 halfway through the second quarter. Like, what should that be worth? And pricing that is actually pretty challenging and comes down to having really good in-game data. But because we went into fantasy, it kind of pulled that forward and forced us to solve the hardest problem first. And now we're seeing great results with it. Like 12% of the pick'em volume on real-time fantasy sports got traded in the very first week. And our long-term projection goals were just 5 to 10%. So we've been really happy to see the initial traction. And yeah, so that's why we're excited to just keep it going in fantasy for now.
Who is, or perhaps who do you imagine to be, once revenue generation has picked up traction, the quintessential use case or bet type that is being sold? Is it someone selling their pick'em lineup? Is it someone selling a $20 player prop at halftime? Is it more, in your imagination, people selling futures and long-dated bets? If you could define like the most prototypical transaction that will occur on WagerWire over time, who's that user? What type of bet are they selling? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I think it's very applicable to futures trading, right? When you have long-dated bets like that. But through the pick'em use case, we've realized that it's a really good use case for same-game parlays and just parlays in general. And I actually think because that's such a hot area of the industry and such a large share of people's betting volume, that's where the lion's share of our volume will be. We think we can grow futures betting volume because of this. I think one of the drawbacks is your money's tied up all year and you're just locked into it. But if you could jump in and out, we think we could grow what is maybe like a 5% of betting volume right now in futures to double or triple that over time. But then like a good example is we just helped a WagerWire user sell this. He had a 5-leg parlay on the NFL Honors Awards. $5 to win $680,000, and he had all the favorites heading into it. He had like Lamar Jackson, Christian McCaffrey, and so he had. He basically ended up coming one short, but we helped him sell 20% of his bet for $25,000. So he was able to bank a profit, put a down payment on a truck. Like it really changed his life, honestly. So I think those kind of like big futures and parlays are just like the prototypical use case for us.
All right. Don't call him Zeth because that's not his name. Join me in thanking Zach Doctor.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's it for us. Thanks to all of you. You should be nice to these 6 founders because odds are one of them is going to be a multimillionaire within the next 12 months. And a quick round of applause for our 3 panelists. And thank you all for your time.